Krishna. So you've got to enable me to screen share.
I've just made you the host, Maharaj. You should be
Okay.
able.
Okay. So we'll just quickly go through what we did last week. We were talking about, you know, the Isopanisad. There's 108, and there's about 9 really major ones. And Upanishad is the primary one, Isopanisad. So Upanishad means, you know, to actually come near to the source of knowledge, to come near to the teacher or spiritual master. Isha means supreme controller. And so the whole purpose of this Isopanishad is to defeat impersonalism or Mayavadi philosophy. So in Vedic culture, they'll only argue from the Vedas. So Prabhupada starts by introducing, you know, where knowledge comes from. It's the Vedas, and it's coming from the absolute source, from the spiritual source of everything. So therefore, there's no defect. But in this material world, there's 4 defects, which we just have here on the left-hand side. And Isopanishads is known as the Shruti, it's spoken by God. And whatever's spoken by God, it's true for all time, place, and circumstance. And then we talk about the 3 ways that we can obtain knowledge. One is by direct perception. So those 4 defects means we can't do that. And then the next one is hypothesis or Anuman, speculation, in other words. And so that's also got defects. And then last one is Shabda. So knowledge from authority, just like if you want to know what's coming on the TV, we get the TV Times, or we used to do anyway, because it's authoritative. So Vedas are authoritative in that way. So these are all logical arguments. And we said we may not be able to understand what it's saying has been true, but if we accept the principle, then we'll find in due course of time, if we apply them, that they actually work, that they are true. And then we went through the different kinds of Vedas, the original 4 Vedas, Rig, Yajur, Samar, and Atharva, and then the Upanishads, which is like, can anybody remember what the Upanishads are? Like in a newspaper, there are headlines.
Stories, histories.
No, that's the Puranas. Puranas,
Okay, yeah.
but, you know, they're actually like headlines, if you remember. They're threaded throughout the Vedas so that when we're going through a paper, we'll come across the headlines, and if the headline's catchy, we'll read it. And then that's the Shruti. Then the Puranas are the Smriti, spoken about Krishna, and Bhagavatam is part of that. Bhagavat Purana, they call it. And then finally, you know, there's many books written, because the Vedas are so difficult to read, you know, sometimes, that they create stories which draw people in. And then within those stories, they start to explain spiritual subjects, like Mahabharata, Ramayana, like that. And Krishna Dharma, he tends to do that as well. There's one book called with the animals. Anybody remember what it is? Anyway, it's from the Vedas, and he's telling stories from, you know, which are actually imaginary. Well, they're actually full of philosophy, but the stories about the animal kingdom and the interactions of the animals. So I can't remember what they call it now, but I'll tell you later. And then finally, this the 2 Shruti and Smriti. Okay. So invocation. So we'll just start reading that first. Who didn't read last week? Anybody like to read? Or we'll just start from the top. I'll just start picking you out. Is that all right? My Purishra, you on the top of my screen. And you're muted.
I'm happy to read. What am I reading? Sorry.
Have you got Isopanisad there?
Yeah.
You got invocation.
Hang on a minute. Sorry. Where are we starting from?
Invocation.
Okay. Sorry.
What we can do, we can all recite the what,
Okay. Do you want me to just do the translation?
just a minute. Om Purnam Adah Purnamidam Purnat Purnam Udachite Purnasya Purnam Adaya Purnam Eva Vashishyate.
Okay, you want me to translation? The personality of Godhead is perfect and complete, and because he is completely perfect, all emanations from him, such as this phenomenal world, are perfectly equipped as complete wholes. Whatever is produced of the complete whole is also complete in itself. Because he is the complete whole, even though so many complete units emanate from him, he remains the complete balance. Carry on, yep. Purport.
Yeah. Okay, you can carry on. Purport.
Purport. The complete whole or the supreme absolute truth is the complete personality of Godhead. Realization of impersonal Brahman or Paramatma, the supersoul, is incomplete realization of the absolute complete. The supreme personality of Godhead is Sat Chitananda Vigraha. Realization of impersonal Brahman is realization of his Sat feature or his aspect of eternity, and Paramatma realization is realization of his Sat and Chit features. His aspects of eternity are knowledge, but realization of the personality of Godhead is realization of all the transcendental features, Sat, Chit, and Ananda, bliss. When one realizes the Supreme Person, he realizes these aspects of the Absolute Truth in their completeness. Vigraha means form, thus the complete whole is not formless. If he were formless, or if he were less than his creation in any other way, he would not be complete. The complete whole must contain everything both within and beyond our experience, otherwise he cannot be complete.
So that's an important point in that first paragraph. If we're arguing with people, is that, we're a person, so, the origin must have personality. Otherwise, it's not logical, We can't get something from nothing. And, everything is contained within the Absolute Truth. Some of it we can understand, some of it we can't. So some things are beyond our experience and some things are within our experience. So this is something that the scientists don't accept. They'll only accept things that they can actually logically understand or prove by their theories, which is not a very, scientific way of dealing with things. If they have limited knowledge, how can they understand things which are beyond their actual, understanding? I'll just turn to the there we are. So, the verse itself says everything, doesn't it? The personality of Godhead is perfect and complete. Because he is completely perfect, even though so many emanations come from him, it still remains complete. So that means that, you take one away from one and it usually leaves none. We take one away from Krishna and the answer is one. So this is the difference between spirit and matter. Spirit is actually, immutable. It's what can you say? It defies a lot of the material laws because it's the exact opposite. Material laws mean everything's limited, but with spirit, it's actually unlimited because that's the nature of the absolute truth. And, as spirit souls, we are also of that nature. So our real nature is unlimited. And even in the spiritual world, it's explained that, we can actually be in more than one place at once. We can be in more than one pastime at once. We can be in Lord Chaitanya's pastimes, and we can be in Lord Krishna's pastimes at the same time. We even see that when Krishna appears in this world, he comes with his entourage, his spiritual family. And if you read the, what they call that book, which has got all the positions of people in the spiritual world, I forget what they call it. But, some have got more than one identity. They're one person, but they're another person as well. Yeah? Has anybody come across that? And so, for us, we get confused and we start thinking, what's going on? But, it's just beyond our comprehension how that can actually be. And so, we have to accept that based on faith. Some things we'll understand, some things we won't. So even though so many complete units emanate, it still remains the complete balance. Whatever is produced of the complete is also complete in itself. So we're going to deal with that specifically now. So anyway, this particular approach, it's got it's like these acronyms. This was actually generated by I think it was the brahmacharis at the manor. They're actually Indians, most of them. So they do this actually in India. They've got, to make it easy for understanding. I can't say I always agree with it, but anyway, they've got the Lord, the land, and the living entity. So 3 different types of completeness. So I just wrote at the side here. In the Brahma Samhita, Ekopya Sora Chaitam Jagarandakoti. And so this verse is actually explaining how the Supreme Personality of God is simultaneously inside everything and outside everything, and at the same time. So this is Lord Brahma offering praise to the Supreme Personality of God. It's actually Garbhodaka Shai Vishnu at the beginning of creation. And then he says, such is the primeval Lord who I adore. In other words, he's just actually glorifying that who can understand how that's possible. And, when we go to the seed verses of the Bhagavatam, which we'll talk about in a bit, anyway, just overviewing now, then the land, everything in this world has got its own time scale. And so as nature, immaterial nature, the land is part of it. Or in this place, it says the universe. The universe has its own time scale, so that's complete. At a certain time, it'll be wound up no matter what happens. Living beings, we're also complete. When we try to act on in a material way, we always find that there's something missing. It's not quite complete. We're not quite completely satisfied. And so that's because we're not connected with the complete whole. We'll always feel something. Therefore, we have to, connect everything with Krishna. That's the process of devotional service. And we'll read on a little bit more now. So, Jai Krishna Prabhu, do you want to read?
Get the page.
Second paragraph.
Yep. Standing the complete whole, personality of Godhead.
Yeah, that's right.
The complete whole, the personality of Godhead, has immense potency, all of which are as complete as he is. Thus, this phenomenal world is also complete in itself. The 24 elements, of which the material universe is a temporary manifestation, are arranged to produce everything necessary for the maintenance and subsistence of this universe. No other unit in the universe need make an extraneous effort to try to maintain the universe. The universe functions on its own timescale, which is fixed by the energy of the complete whole. And when that schedule is completed, its temporary manifestation will be annihilated by the complete arrangement of the whole. All facilities are given the small complete unit, namely the living being, to enable them to realize the complete whole. All forms of incompleteness are experienced due to incomplete knowledge of the complete whole. The human form of life is a complete manifestation of the consciousness of the living being, and it is obtained after evolving through 8,400,000 species of life in the cycle of birth and death. If in this human life of full consciousness, the living entity does not realize his completeness in relation to the complete whole, he loses the chance to realize his completeness and is again put into the evolutionary cycle by the law of nature. Thus, we do not know that there is a complete arrangement of nature for our maintenance. We make efforts to utilize the resources of nature to create a so-called complete life of sense enjoyment. Because the living entity cannot enjoy the life of the senses without being dovetailed with the complete whole. The misleading life of sense enjoyment is an illusion. The hand of a body is a complete unit only as long as it is attached to the complete body. When the hand is severed from the body, it may appear like a hand, but it actually has none of the potencies of a hand. Similarly, living beings are part and parcel of the complete whole, and if they are severed from the complete whole, the illusionary representation of completeness cannot fully satisfy them.
Okay. Anyway, you might as well finish. There's only one paragraph.
The completeness of human life can be realized only when one engages in the service of the complete whole. All services in this world, whether social, political, communal, international, or even interplanetary, will remain incomplete until they are dovetailed with the complete whole. Everything is dovetailed with the complete whole. The attached part and parcel also become complete themselves.
Yeah, we're always, Prabhupada said the trouble is, we're always we want something new all the time. He says, especially with you, he said, with you Western devotees, you're always changing things. In India, they've been worshipping a deity sometimes for thousands of years, and nothing's changed. They just followed exactly as the worship's been passed down from in disciplic succession. But even now, there's one book out called Kirtan. What is it? Kirtan. Let's have a look. Kirtan Standards by Jayadvaita Maharaj. And in there, if you read it, there's so many things that Prabhupada never. He didn't want devotees to do, and so many things that more not so important things that have been changed. And, you know, even in my lifetime, you know, when I first joined, I find that we're doing things now which we never used to do. And it's all like add-ons and add-ons and add-ons, you know. So we have to be careful that within the movement that, you know, we stick to the way we were taught. And we question when there's a change, you know. So Prabhupada said, we don't need anything new. Everything is provided, everything. And so if we use it, so it's the same with living entities. You know, this body is complete for self-realization. It's perfect, whatever condition. And also for our maintenance, you know, if we follow the guidance of the Vedas, then we've got enough eatables. Prabhupada said, you know, we can. It's as if this, you know, they're saying that there's actually food shortage, and he said this planet can provide 20 times the population that it has now with food. And you know, when I used to travel a lot in Russia, you know, and it's a big country, and you know, when you're traveling by airplane, sometimes you look down and you don't see anything for hours. It's just fields or you know, arable land. And so, you know, that would fill the whole solar system. It's so big. And yet there's a shortage. That's just mismanagement. If we just follow Krishna's direction, there's never a shortage. It's the same, you know, we tend to rely on our own ability sometimes too much. And the whole purpose of Krishna consciousness is to realize that, you know, Krishna's provided everything for us. And in the process of self-realization is also providing everything for us if we can accept it. So, you know, to surrender to Krishna is also part of that. That we're not just relying on our own ability, but we're relying on the ability that Krishna can give us. And the last one, we are living entity. Oh, we've done that one. So yeah, there's complete facility for complete happiness. If we're connected with the whole, then we, you know, we function automatically on the spiritual platform when we follow the instructions of the of the Vedas, of the spiritual master and Krishna. And if we don't do that, then it may seem temporarily that we get some relief, but then what happens is that, you know, everything becomes incomplete again. We've got the formula wrong. We're trying to, you know, enjoy things which are not really meant for enjoyment. And, you know, the Vedas give us an opportunity that we don't have to actually give up everything, but we use everything in a congenial way. And gradually we can, you know, I was thinking today that it's like, you know, when they're learning the young kids to swim, right? You take them to the swimming bath or to a pool of water, and you keep hold of the, you know, you hold both their arms and you dip them in, you know, to get used to the water, right? And then you don't let go of them, otherwise they'll go under, but you dip them in, they get used to the water, then you go a little bit further. And so it's like that. Krishna allows us to dip into the material energy. He knows it's actually a dangerous place, but he writes the Vedas so we can dip in and have a try. And we've got enough intelligence and strength to get out again. Well, most people are just, you know, they hold the nose and they just jump straight in. So, you know, if we follow the Vedas, that doesn't happen. So here that we saw that example, you know, two hands here, which are separated from the body. When we're connected to Krishna, then we're useful. If we're not connected to Krishna, everything we do, it won't do us any good ultimately. Okay, we can Yeah, so why is Krishna complete? Because he's everything. We can't, when we think of a person, we think of a person as an individual and then things around him, right? But those things are Krishna. It says in the Bhagavad Gita, I think it's chapter 9, text 4. It says, I can't remember the Sanskrit actually. Mayata tamidam sarvam jagata vyakta murtina matstani sarvabhutani nachaham teshu avastisada. Krishna is saying, by me, in my unmanifested form, all this universe is pervaded. All beings are in me, but I am not in them. So he's saying that he's a person separated from his energies, but that energy is simultaneously him. So that's a different category of his energy, that's all. So even though, so in that way, everything within Krishna is complete. It can't be anything else. So I think we'll move on to the next one. So this is mantra. Anybody got any comments on that or any questions? Okay. So invocation, this is a link. The invocation is talking about Krishna's completeness. And then the mantra one starts to talk about, because it's complete, he's actually made arrangements in this world by which we can actually, use things which are actually belong to him. As we said, everything is Krishna's energy, and still enjoy this world. Yeah, you can put your anyway.
So I was just thinking, he was talking about like the universe being whole, and I was reading a book the other day, and it was basically about science and religion, and I was just thinking, does Krishna play a direct hand in it, or is there like a universal the word like clockwork? It runs on its own, so it's created and it runs on its own.
No, there's personalities in everything. What seems to be clockwork is the demigods. Like the laws of karma are there, but the demigods are actually implementing it. There's the three modes of nature, which are another energy of the Supreme Lord, but they're actually giving the results of activities. They're like the engineers who are controlling everything on Krishna's behalf. Yeah. There's a demigod in charge of every aspect of this body. There's 33 million prominent demigods. And
so in effect, Krishna is kind of one step removed.
He's one step removed, but he's also very, very close. In Isopanisad later on, we'll see how it says that he's very near, but he's very far away.
Mm-hmm.
So he's very near if we're actually in the proper consciousness, but if we're not, then he's very far away. Okay. So, for a devotee, he becomes very near and he becomes the overseer. He becomes he actually, it says in the body we have the super soul, right? And if you've seen a picture of the super soul, it's got 4 arms, right? It's Shirodakashai Vishnu form. He says, but for a devotee who's serving Krishna in the process of Bhakti Yoga, that form becomes Krishna. It's actually the Supreme Lord himself who's in the heart. So it depends on how much do we want to see Krishna, how much do we want to serve Krishna. it's all dependent on our, you know, desire and intensity. It's not, so therefore it's not a mechanical thing. And in one respect, so that's for a devotee. But, you know, for a materialistic person, as soon as he starts to serve the material energy instead of Krishna directly, you know, he has to serve Krishna one way or the other, then he becomes under the control of the three modes of material nature. And so the more we actually try to enjoy the material energy, the more we become under the control. And then we go into different species and we're forced to act in a certain way. So in that way, you know, it becomes mechanical that we're actually, we're going to go through so many species and so many situations due to our karma. But in the human form, there's actually a choice. So we've got a choice whether to accrue good karma or bad karma, or better still, you know, to akarma. We'll talk about that in a bit. Accrue no karma. So yeah, Krishna's it's simultaneously in the heart and a witnesser, Upadrashta Anumanta. So he's overseeing every single thing. There's nothing he doesn't know about. But the demigods are actually doing all the work on his behalf at the same time. So I've got a hand up here, Tushar's phone.
Thank you so much. So I was just thinking about, I was finding difficult to conceptualize the statement where it was talking about the complete and you subtracting from the complete to still remain with the complete. And, you know, I was just thinking about that. And I think I recall an example someone told me where I should think about how, you know, if you have a lamp, a fire, a candle, and if you take light another candle using that same flame, you've still got to complete, well, you've got the complete still even after removing another complete. So I don't know if that's useful or helpful to anyone.
Yeah, that's in the Brahma Samhita. That's talking about the different forms of the Lord. Deparche hidasantam apyupecha. Deepa means light.
Yep.
So it says that the original candle is Krishna. And he lights all the other candles. So the other candles are as powerful, but they're not the original candle. So when we talk about Vishnu and Krishna, Prabhupada would often say it's the same person. It's the same person, but it isn't the same person in one respect, because they have different mentalities, different functions. So you can understand that it's the same person, because it's actually, you know, as we said, in spiritual life, you can be you can expand into so many forms, but Krishna can expand into so many forms. And so they're him, but they have a different mood. Anyway, we're talking about a different thing now, but I just thought I'd go along that line. So yeah, I mean, yeah, so it's not really explaining his completeness, what you were talking about. I think these three examples help us to understand it. You know, if we can actually think about that we don't need that, you know, to add anything. We've added so many things to civilization which are completely, you know, they're not needed. We've got motorways, we've got aeroplanes. You know, we're meant for self-realization. But people are trained to think they need all these things, that's all. And, you know, in order to do that, they have to take God out of the equation. You know, when there's a strong God consciousness, they can't actually infiltrate, because people are satisfied because they're on the right path. They've got what they need for the journey. They don't need anything else. So then they realize, you know, my life's complete. This body's complete. So by practical application, we can start to realize that everything's complete. But if we've got material consciousness, it'll never be complete. We'll always want something extra. Anyway, I'm going on a little bit here, but anyway. Invocation and mantra one. So, yeah, we've already gone through that. That if Krishna's complete and is everywhere and everything's his, then he's the proprietor of everything. So therefore, you know, we should understand how should we use things. So this is the next verse. It's talking about the Ishavasya principle. So who would like to read next? This is text one. I'll just read the Ishavashyam idam sarvam ya kincha jagatyam jagat tena takchena bunjitaha ma gridaha kasvisviddanam. Okay. What about Tusha? Would you like to read?
Hare Krishna, thank you. Everything animate or inanimate that is within the universe is controlled and owned by the Lord. One should therefore accept only those things necessary for himself, which are set aside as his quota, and one should not accept other things, knowing well to whom they belong. Purport: Vedic knowledge is infallible because it comes down through the perfect disciplic succession of spiritual masters, beginning with the Lord himself. Since he spoke the first word in Vedic knowledge, the source of this knowledge is transcendental. The words spoken by the Lord are called Apaurushaya, which indicates that they are not delivered by any mundane person. A living being who lives in the mundane world has 4 defects. He is certain to commit mistakes. He is subject to illusion. He has a propensity to cheat others, and his senses are imperfect. No one with these 4 imperfections can deliver perfect knowledge. The Vedas are not produced by such an imperfect creature. Vedic knowledge was originally imparted by the Lord into the heart of Brahma, the first living creature, the first created living being. And Brahma, in his turn, disseminated this knowledge to his sons and disciples, who have handed it down through history. Can I carry on? Since the Lord is...
Wait a minute, where we got? Oh, you've got the first paragraph, yeah. So we did that last week. We did about the different defects, so carry on.
Thank you. Since the Lord is Purnam, all perfect, there is no possibility of his being subjected to the laws of material nature, which he controls. However, both the living entities and the inanimate objects are controlled by the laws of nature, and ultimately by the Lord's potency. This Isopanisad is part of the Yajur Veda, and consequently it contains information concerning the proprietorship of all things existing within the universe. Yeah.
Okay, carry on.
The Lord's proprietorship over everything within the universe is confirmed in the 7th chapter of the Bhagavad Gita. Bhagavad Gita, chapter 7, verse 4 to 5, where para and apara prakti are discussed. The elements of nature, earth, water, fire, air, ether, mind, intelligence, and ego, all belong to the Lord's inferior material energy, apara prakti, whereas the living being, the organic energy, is his superior energy, para prakti. Both of these praktis or energies are emanations from the Lord, and ultimately he is the controller of everything that exists. There is nothing in the universe that does not belong to either the para or the apara prakti. Therefore, everything is the property of the Supreme Being. Thank you, sir.
Okay, para means superior energy. Apara means the inferior energy. And this is the same Bhagavad Gita 7:4-5. He says, Bhumir apa nalo vayu. That means Bhumi, earth, water, fire, air, ether. Mano, mind. Bhumir apa nalo vayu. Karma. We did this last week, actually. Mani, buddhi, intelligence, avacha. These are astada, these are my 8 separated material energies. So that's the material. Everything's those things are actually permeating everything in the material creation. And then he says, Aparayam itastvanyam prakriti vidime param. Param, there's a superior nature which is exploiting these different energies, earth, water, fire, air, ether, and all the things that they make up. And he says that's the living entity, that's us, the soul. So they're both energies of the Supreme Lord, but they're different. And because we're trying to exploit them, because they're powerful energies of Lord, they start to actually condition us to the material world. So,
Okay. Oh, sorry.
Go on, carry on.
Because the Supreme Being, the absolute personality of Godhead, is a complete person, he has complete and perfect intelligence to adjust everything by means of his different potencies. The Supreme Being is often compared to fire, and everything organic and inorganic is compared to heat and light of that fire. Just as fire distributes energy in the form of heat and light, the Lord displays his energy in different ways. He thus remains the ultimate controller, sustainer, and dictator of everything. He is the possessor of all potencies, the knower of everything, and the benefactor of everyone. He is full of inconceivable opulence, power, fame, beauty, knowledge, and renunciation.
Yes, so Eka Desha. Eka means one, Desha means place. Like, in India they'll say a place, they'll say something Desh, or it's actually a place. So Eka Desha. Stita means fixed in that place. Eka Desha Sisa Agnya. So, like fires in one place, it'll illuminate everything everything around it. So if you can imagine, the energy of the Supreme Personality of Godhead are actually everywhere in the universe. In fact, everywhere in creation. So all these, what Prabhupada's writing here, it's not that he's just actually giving his own idea of how he can explain it and making up his own, examples. He's actually always quoting from Shastra in a paraphrased form. And the more we actually, learn slokas, we'll realize that that's Prabhupada's just adding a few words in between, but just paraphrasing the words of the Vedas. Especially, anyway, we can carry on. Yeah.
Yep.
Just have a look at let's have a look at see if there's anything we can, anything said in here. Yeah, throw 3 things: books, Bhagavatam, or Bhagavan, or the body, the material body. So the Vedas, the books, and the Supreme Personality of God, Bhagavan. And this is the example of fire in one place, the para prakriti. And then now we're going to maintenance of the living entity next. Okay, carry it. Does somebody else want to read? Has anybody Don't be shy. What about Sikh Takarani Mati? Would you like to read?
Mataji, you're on mute.
5 minutes to tell me. Are you sure it's me? Which
Yes,
reference
next one,
bit?
Supreme.
Sorry, I was on the wrong page.
One should therefore be intelligent, it says. That's how it starts.
Oh, yes, sorry.
Yeah.
One should therefore be intelligent enough to know that except for the Lord, no one is a proprietor of anything. One should accept only those things that are set aside by the Lord as his quota. The cow, for instance, gives milk, but she does not drink that milk. She eats grass and straw, and her milk is designated as food for human beings. Such is the arrangement of the Lord. Thus we should be satisfied with those things he has kindly set aside for us, and we should always consider to whom those things we possess actually belong. Take, for example, our dwelling, which is made of earth, wood, stone, iron, cement, and so many other material things. If we think in terms of Sri Isopanisad, we must know that we cannot produce any of these building materials ourselves. We can simply bring them together and transform them into different shapes by our labor. A laborer cannot claim to be a proprietor of a thing just because he has worked hard to manufacture it. Read a bit.
Yeah. In modern society, there's always a great quarrel between the labourers and the capitalists. This quarrel has taken an international shape and the world is endangered. Men face one another in enmity and snarl at cats and dogs. Sri Isopanisad cannot give advice to the cats and dogs, but it can deliver the message of Godhead to man through the bona fide acharyas, holy teachers. The human race should take the Vedic wisdom of Isopanisad and not quarrel over material possessions. One must be satisfied by whatever privileges are given to him by the mercy of the Lord. There can be no peace if the communists or capitalists or any other party claims proprietorship over the resources of nature, which are entirely the property of the Lord. The capitalists cannot curb the communists simply by political maneuvering, nor can the communists defeat the capitalists simply by fighting for stolen bread. If they do not recognize the proprietorship of the Supreme Personality of Godhead, all the property which they claim to be their own is stolen. Consequently, they will be liable to punishment by the laws of nature. Nuclear bombs are in the hands of both communists and capitalists, and if both do not recognize the proprietorship of the Supreme Lord, it is certain that these bombs will ultimately ruin both parties. Thus, in order to save themselves and bring peace to the world, both parties must follow the instructions of Sri Isopanisad. Human beings are not meant to quarrel like cats and dogs. They must be intelligent enough to realize the importance and aim of human life. The Vedic literatures are compiled for humanity and not for cats and dogs. Cats and dogs can kill other animals for food without incurring sin. But if a man kills an animal for the satisfaction of his uncontrolled taste buds, he is responsible for breaking the laws of nature. Consequently, he must be punished. The standard of life for human beings cannot be applied to animals. The tiger does not eat rice, wheat, or drink cow's milk because he has been given food in the shape of animal flesh. There are many animals and birds that are either vegetarian or carnivorous, but none of them transgress the laws of nature, as these laws have been ordained by the will of God. Animals, birds, reptiles, and other lower forms of life strictly adhere to the laws of nature. Therefore, there is no question of sin for them, nor are the Vedic instructions meant for them. Human life alone is a life of responsibility. It is wrong to consider that simply by becoming a vegetarian, one can avoid transgressing the laws of nature. Vegetables also have life. It is nature's law that one living being is meant to feed another. Thus, one should not be proud of being a strict vegetarian. The point is to recognize the Supreme Lord. Animals do not have developed consciousness by which to recognize the Lord, but a human being is sufficiently intelligent to take lessons from Vedic literatures and thereby know how the laws of nature are working and derive profit out of such knowledge. If a man neglects the instructions of the Vedic literatures, his life becomes very risky. A human being is therefore required to recognize the authority of the Supreme Lord. He must be a devotee of the Lord, offer everything to the Lord's service, and partake only of the remnants of food offered to the Lord. This will enable him to discharge his duty properly. In Bhagavad Gita, the Lord directly states that he accepts vegetarian food from the hands of a pure devotee. Bhagavad Gita 9:26. Therefore, a human being should not only become a strict vegetarian, but should also become a devotee of the Lord and offer the Lord all his food. Then only one should partake of prasad, or mercy of God. A devotee who can act in this consciousness can properly discharge the duty of human life. Those who do not offer their food to the Lord actually eat sin and subject themselves to various types of distress, which are results of sin. Bhagavad Gita 3:13. The root of sin is deliberate disobedience to the laws of nature through disregarding the proprietorship of the Lord. Disobedience to the laws of nature or the order of the Lord bring ruin to a human being. If one is sober, knows the laws of nature, and is not influenced by unnecessary attachment or perversion, he is sure to be recognized by the Lord, and he is sure to become eligible to go back to Godhead, back to the eternal home. Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna. That's the end of mantra 1. Yes, so this is called the Ishabhasham principle. And that's very important in our devotional service, and it's easy to forget. You know, if we're connected with Krishna, we see everything. If we're actually Krishna conscious, we see everything connected with Krishna, and we use everything in an appropriate way. And otherwise, we're following the process of Vaidhi sadhana bhakti. We follow rules and regulations to help us coach the mind, you know, into that space of remembrance all the time. So this is like mechanical devotional service in many respects. But, you know, Prabhupada said that just like a child, if they bring him to the temple and they pay their obeisances, then the child pays his obeisances. He don't know what he's doing, but it's mechanical. And then as he actually develops, then it'll become more, you know, he'll be more conscious of what he's doing. So that's our process of Krishna consciousness. But we have to make an effort. Otherwise, you know, one book is called Nectar of Instruction. Nectar of Instruction, it talks about, I think it's the second or third verse. I forgot what they call the word. We practice the rules and regulations for the sake of practicing. There's 2 meanings to this particular word, and then the second one is that we avoid practicing the rules and regulations. What do they call that now? Let me have a look. It's getting on my nerves. We'll find it. Has anybody got an extra instruction? Oh, it's here. Oh, this is it. Achahara Pyasascha Prajalpa Niyamagraha, they call it. Niyamagraha. We practice, but we're not focusing on what we're doing. Is anybody guilty of that? You know, we don't actually connect it with Krishna and meditate in that way. So that's, you know, this is unfavorable for devotional. If we want to go forward, we have to force the mind. And when we chant nice rounds, it's a lot easier to do that. Krishna rewards us with that ability. And the other one is, you know, we'd start neglecting devotional service, neglecting doing what we should do. So later on in the next sort of instruction, it mentions that you know, first we Shravana Das, we keep hearing about Krishna. Then we you know, we start to accept the process, Varana Das, and then Smarana, then remembrance comes in gradual stages. First it's, you know, intermittent, then it's constant, then it's focused or it's absorption, then we meditate, and then it becomes constant meditation, anusmriti, and then finally samadhi, we're completely absorbed. And that is at that stage when we're completely absorbed, sampatidas, that means we understand who we really are and what our relationship is with Krishna. And we're all responsible for doing that. We've all got the, you know, Krishna's given us the license to take as much Krishna consciousness as we want. So it's just a matter of, you know, being really, really focused. And sometimes, you know, after some time, I think, you know, I've been practicing this process for a good 3 months now. That's what I used to think. Been practicing for a good 3 months. There's nothing happening. And then, you know, 20 years later, we're saying the same thing. You know, we are actually making progress, but we could do a lot better, you know. And when we do make that effort, you know, life becomes so much better. Our Krishna consciousness like takes a leap forward. You know, Krishna's not going to give us things. He's going to make us actually purify ourselves. He's just saying how serious, you know, do you want to? As soon as we want to see Krishna seriously enough, he'll appear. And then this, you know, it's a Vasyam principle we're talking about here. It'll just be automatic. We don't have to think about dovetailing everything with Krishna. But for now, you know, seeing like that, it really helps us. Just seeing a situation and seeing how it's related to Krishna, doing something and seeing how it's related to Krishna, how it's connected with Krishna. And, you know, especially mentally. We'll just go to the, before we finish, see if there's anything we've missed. Yeah, Prabhupada, I think it's in this section. It's showing the capitalists and the communists. He says, you know, I don't know if it's in this verse. Another one he talks about stolen bread. He says the communists, the capitalists trying to maneuver things so that they can be in power. You know, they've got the wealth. The capitalists, you know, they're fighting over stolen bread. And I just think, what's he talking about? You know, fighting over stolen bread. And then I remembered he said that, you know, when the communists took over, people were religious and they used to go to the church. You know, there used to be a shortage of bread. And they'd say, why are you going to church to pray for bread? We've got a van full here. You know, you don't need God. And so this is actually cheating. This is stealing. It's Krishna's bread. It's Krishna's grains that they're using. So then I understood why Prabhupada used that, those terms. That everything that we use in this world, it's actually Krishna. So unless we use this, it's a Vasyam principle, it's actually stealing. Prabhupada once said to one businessman, he said, what do you do? Then in Mayapur, and this, you know, the businessmen, they know that if they've got to keep, you know, this for the business to flourish, they actually know that they've got to keep, you know, connection with Krishna. So they came to see Prabhupada. He says, and what's your business? He says, I make glass. He says, oh, where do you get the glass from? He says, from the sand. He says, where does the sand come from? And he had to admit, he said, it comes from God. He says, so you're stealing. You're a thief. Okay, any questions on that? Or anything to add? anyway, what one thing you can do, it'll help you to. There's a book here called. Can you read that?
No. Selected verses from the Vedic scriptures. Got it.
Yeah, it's a really good book. Just we tend to think, reading slow is boring. But I say, if you read through these slokas and then read the translation, you find all the philosophies there. You just remember a sloka, or even if it's just the English you remember, and then you feel really solid in what you say. When you're talking.
Brilliant. Thank you.
Okay. So thank you everybody for joining. And
Thank you very much.
we can see you next week.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Okay.
Thank you.
So the Prabhupada.
Hare Krishna, thank you.
Shiv
Prabhupada,
Krishna
okay.
Ki Jai.
Bye.
Jai.
Lord of Premanand.
Hare Krishna.
Be
Hare
well.
Krishna.
Thank you, Maharaj.
Thank you. Oh, she's gone.